You have been restless in a way you cannot name. Not anxious exactly, not sad. Something closer to the feeling of standing in a room you have lived in for years, and suddenly noticing the walls are slightly too close. The furniture looks familiar but wrong. You have been waking at odd hours, somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning. Not from nightmares, but from nothing. Just a low-grade hum behind your sternum, like a frequency your nervous system is trying to tune into, but keeps just missing. You have been catching yourself mid-sentence, losing the thread, starting over. You have been saying, "I don't know what I want," more than you have said it in years, and that sentence has a different weight now. It is not confusion. It is not depression. It is something that feels almost like a pressure building behind your eyes, behind your words, behind the version of yourself you have been presenting to the world. Stay with this feeling, because it is not a malfunction. It is a signal. On April 25th, Uranus, the planet astronomers classify as an ice giant, spinning on its side, rotating at 97 degrees from its orbital plane, a body so structurally strange that scientists still debate what it contains, moves out of Taurus, where it has spent the last 7 years reorganizing your relationship to money, security, and the physical world, and enters Gemini for the first time since 1941. What you are about to understand is exactly why your mind has felt like a browser with too many tabs open. You will learn what Uranus in Gemini dismantles at the level of thought itself, not just circumstance. You will see which of the 12 signs carries the sharpest exposure to this transit, and what specific crossroads each of them is being asked to navigate. And you will leave with a precise, timed practice, designed not for spiritual performance, but for physiological anchoring, because this transit moves fast, and your nervous system needs a landing point. This is not a small event. Let that sink in before anything else. Uranus takes approximately 84 years to complete one orbit around the Sun. It spends roughly 7 years in each sign. The last time it transited, Gemini, was from 1941 to 1948, a period that restructured global communication systems, fractured old ideological certainties, and forced an entire civilization to develop new languages for realities that had no prior vocabulary. Radio became the nervous system of wartime information and disinformation simultaneously. Codes were broken and invented. The foundations of computing emerged from the necessity of processing complexity faster than the human mind could manage alone. The world did not simply change during that transit. The architecture of how humans processed, shared, and stored thought changed. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. In astrological mechanics, Mercury governs language, neural pathways, perception, data transmission, short-distance communication, and the split-second decisions the mind makes before consciousness registers them. It is the sign of twins, not because Gemini is two-faced, as the caricature suggests, but because Gemini holds the original human awareness that every truth has at least one other version. When Uranus, the planet of rupture, radical acceleration, and sudden revelation, moves through the domain of Gemini, it does not disrupt your emotions or your finances directly. It disrupts the operating system underneath all of that. It disrupts how you think, how you communicate, what you believe is true, and which version of yourself you use language to construct and maintain. The last 7 years of Uranus in Taurus were felt in the body. Security, land, money, physical health, those were the pressure points. You may have lost financial stability or rebuilt it from scratch. You may have relocated, changed your physical environment, watched institutions of economic safety tremble or fall. That was Uranus doing what it always does, forcing evolution by dismantling what had calcified. What comes now is faster. Gemini accelerates everything it touches. Uranus in Gemini does not give you time to sit with the disruption. It delivers the next one before you have finished processing the first. This is not meant as a warning to frighten you. It is precision about what you are entering. The metaphor that fits is not an earthquake. It is electricity, rapid, traveling at speed, capable of illuminating an entire room in a fraction of a second, and capable of burning out the wiring if the circuits have not been updated. Your body has already been registering this shift for weeks. The pressure behind your eyes, specifically behind the left eye, often more than the right, has been appearing without a headache, without a trigger. This is the visual cortex, processing an increased volume of associative thinking. The brain making new connections faster than it can catalog them. The tightness across the upper chest, the collarbone region, that sensation of shallow breath that has nothing to do with your lungs, that is your vagus nerve responding to an acceleration of sensory input without a corresponding outlet. The jaw tension you have been carrying, especially in the morning, before you have spoken to anyone, is the body's physical storage of unsaid language, of thoughts that have not yet found their form. The occasional ringing or fullness in one ear, the sense that words are slightly slipping before they arrive, these are not symptoms of illness. They are symptoms of a nervous system preparing for a bandwidth upgrade it did not choose and was not explicitly warned about. The practical response to each of these is not suppression. It is output. Writing longhand. Speaking aloud alone. Moving the body to give the circuitry a second channel through which to discharge what is building. Now to the signs most directly in the path of this transit, and to what it is actually asking of each of them. Gemini carries the sharpest direct exposure for an obvious mechanical reason. Uranus is transiting your first house, the house of self, identity, and the body's first impression on the world. For Gemini, this transit is not about something happening around you. It is happening to the instrument you use to navigate everything. The psychological experience inside a first-house Uranus transit is a sustained identity crisis that does not feel dramatic from the outside. You are still functioning. You are still recognizable. But the internal coherence you relied on, the story about who you are and what you stand for, has developed a stutter. The unresolved question this transit is targeting in you is the one you have been avoiding for years. Which version of yourself have you been performing, and which one do you actually want to be? The crossroads is this. You can continue maintaining both versions simultaneously until the transit forces a split. Or you can choose the discontinuity deliberately, on your own terms, before it chooses for you. Sagittarius moves through this transit in its 7th house, the house of partnerships, contracts, and the agreements you make about how you will relate to another person or institution. The mechanical exposure is opposition. Uranus in Gemini sits directly across the zodiac from Sagittarius, pulling at every long-term commitment from the other side. The psychological experience is the slow recognition that a relationship or agreement you entered in good faith has quietly become a container too small for who you have become. It is not necessarily dramatic. It may not be painful, but you have been feeling a low, steady pull toward a horizon that your current commitments do not include. The unresolved question is whether loyalty to what was built is the same as loyalty to what is true. The crossroads is this: you are being asked to have the honest conversation you have been rehearsing in the shower, and you already know that the version of you who has that conversation is not the same version who comes out on the other side. Virgo and Pisces carry mutable cross-pressure from Uranus in Gemini through the square and opposition aspects respectively, but Virgo's exposure is particularly precise. Uranus in Gemini activates Virgo's 10th house of career, public reputation, and the work you offer to the world. For Virgo, the psychological experience of this transit has already begun as a creeping dissatisfaction with competence itself. You are good at what you do, possibly exceptional, and that has stopped feeling like enough. The specific, unresolved question this transit is targeting is whether the structure you have built your professional life inside was built for you or built for what other people needed you to be. The crossroads is this: you are not being asked to abandon your craft, but you are being asked to point it somewhere your permission structure has not yet authorized. Aquarius, ruled by Uranus itself, receives this transit as a return to the frequency of its own inner architecture. The fourth house is activated, the house of home, ancestry, psychological foundation, and the private self that exists before any audience. For Aquarius, the experience is a sudden inability to feel at home anywhere, including inside the belief systems that have long provided shelter. The unresolved question is about origin, what you carry from your family, your culture, your inherited frameworks that you accepted as true without ever testing. The crossroads is this: something foundational is ready to be examined, and, in that examination, either confirmed or composted, and you have been postponing the excavation because you are not sure you will recognize yourself on the other side of it. There are 4 specific behaviors that will cost you during this 7-year window, and naming them is more useful than leaving them as vague caution. Making permanent structural decisions, signing long contracts, making irreversible financial commitments, ending relationships definitively in the first 6 months of this transit is premature for a precise reason. Uranus in Gemini changes the information landscape faster than any conclusion drawn from the current landscape can remain valid. Acting on a certainty that this transit has not finished delivering is not bold, it is expensive. The alternative behavior is to make smaller, reversible moves that allow you to gather information from the new frequency before locking in a direction. Talking more than you are listening during this period creates a specific kind of damage that is difficult to repair. It burns social trust at exactly the moment your network is about to become your most important asset. Uranus in Gemini rewards the person who can synthesize what others cannot yet articulate, and you cannot synthesize what you have not absorbed. Limit your output. Extend your intake. Attempting to resolve the mental restlessness with entertainment, stimulation, and information consumption without a corresponding period of silence will overload the circuits rather than clear them. The nervous system needs intervals of genuine quiet, not sleep, but conscious stillness, in order to process the accelerated input. Without that, the pressure behind your eyes and the jaw tension become chronic, and chronic means normalized, and normalized means invisible, and invisible means unaddressed. Dismissing the intuitions that arrive in the gap between sleeping and waking, the hypnagogic state, the liminal minutes before full consciousness, as meaningless is a specific error during Uranus in Gemini transits. This transit communicates through exactly that channel. Rapid-fire associations. Sudden knowing. Images that arrive before language. Keeping a voice memo or notebook specifically for those moments is not mystical practice. It is data collection. The ritual that follows is designed for the days immediately around April the 25th and can be repeated at each Uranus station, retrograde, and direct across the 7-year transit. In the morning between 5 and 7 a.m., before you have consumed any digital input, sit at a table with a clean sheet of paper, a pen, and a glass of cold water beside you. The water is not symbolic. Cold water activates the vagus nerve and lowers cortisol, creating a physiological state closer to calm clarity than to wired alertness. Before you write anything, hold the glass with both hands for 30 seconds. The intention is simple. You are grounding electrical charge in a physical object before it moves through you. Write for 10 minutes without lifting the pen, without editing, without destination, not journaling, not processing, simply moving thought into form, creating an outlet for what has been building pressure in the circuits. Write whatever arrives, including the sentence "I do not know what I want" if that is what wants to come, because naming a true state is more useful than performing a resolved one. After 10 minutes, read back one sentence that surprised you. Only one. Circle it. It is a coordinate, not a conclusion. Then drink the water slowly, the full glass, which completes the circuit, input, processing, grounding, integration. End the ritual by standing and placing both feet flat on the floor and taking 3 slow breaths, each exhale slightly longer than the inhale. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling to the body that the voltage has been processed and does not need to remain as tension. What this ritual transforms is not confusion into clarity. It transforms pressure into direction. The feeling you came into this experience with, the restlessness, the 3 a.m. waking, the sense of walls slightly too close, is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is changing in you, and there is a precise difference between those two things. Uranus does not break what is healthy. It breaks what has been masquerading as healthy while quietly preventing growth. The structures that have felt limiting for years, the thought patterns, the relationships, the professional identities, the belief systems, they have not been limiting because you are weak. They have been limiting because you have grown larger than they were designed to hold. A vessel does not crack because of pressure from outside. It cracks because what is inside has expanded past its original parameters. You are the expanded thing. The restlessness in your chest is not anxiety looking for a cause. It is intelligence that has outpaced its current form, looking for a new one. The 3 a.m. waking is not insomnia. It is a version of you that is already living in the next configuration, tapping on the wall of the current one. The sentence you cannot finish is not a failure of thought. It is the arrival of a thought that the old sentence structure cannot contain. 7 years is not a short window. It is long enough to build something you could not have imagined at the beginning of it. Uranus in Gemini does not ask you to dismantle your life. It asks you to let your mind become large enough to think the thoughts that your life has not yet made room for, and then to act on them, not recklessly, not without preparation, but with the particular courage of a person who has felt the frequency of what is coming and chosen to meet it before it arrives. The very intensity of what you are feeling is not evidence that you are overwhelmed. It is evidence that you are capable, ready, now. If someone in your life has been feeling the weight this week without knowing why, the restlessness, the interrupted sleep, the sense of something shifting just below language, send this to them, not as information, as recognition. And if you want to be here for what this transit reveals over the next 7 years, as each station, each ingress, each activation point brings new data, then stay close. What comes next in this cycle is already beginning to take shape, and you will want to be oriented when it arrives.